I will sort this out.
Okay.
I just think there's a little, as I said, I think there's a little bit of confusion with regards to the room. And I think there was, I'm just trying to see if there's a couple of other people I sent through messages that they were in the wrong room, but they haven't. Ian's come in, right? Okay. Hopefully everyone will be there.
I just wanted to make sure, can you hear me okay, or would you prefer if I used headphones?
I can personally hear you okay. I think everyone. Yeah, I think
it's okay.
Fine.
Okay.
Fine.
Do you want me to make you co-host in case you want to share anything?
Yes, please. I'd like to share my screen.
Brilliant. Okay, so I think no need to introduce Dr. Spitz. I think it's probably the third or fourth time you've been with us. We've had the pleasure of your company, so it's wonderful to see you. And sorry for keeping you up so late in your time. It's for us, it's sort of early evening, and yes, we look forward to hearing from you with a different take on Nevi'im. So it takes you away from the normal Daf Yomi or the weekly Daf rather than the Daf Yomi, but it's yes, a pleasure to have you with us again, and we look forward to learning from you.
Thank you so much, really. Thank you so much. And it's as it has been in the past, it's really an honor to be able to reach people who are not sitting across the table from me. I'm actually still in school. I just finished teaching a class, and it's just nice to, I told my students, oh, I have another class in 10 minutes. I need you to, empty the room. And they said, wait, where are you going? I said, oh, I have a class in London. They're like, you're leaving now? I said, no. So it's really a zchut to be able to learn with you this evening, and hopefully to find some inspiration for our own tefillah. And the Rabbi Wilkinson sent me the theme of this series that you're doing, which is what we can learn from the prophets. And I thought it would be beautiful to kind of put that together with our preparation for Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, I would love to talk about Chana, Chana being the mother of Shmuel. And we read about Chana as the Haftorah on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And what I'd like to do this evening is to go through the Haftorah that we are going to be reading on Rosh Hashanah. We're going to be looking at Shmuel Aleph, Perek Aleph, the first chapter in Shmuel. The truth is that we read the second chapter as well, which is Chana's prayer, but we're actually going to read together the first chapter. And what I'd really like to think about is how this chapter can inspire our tefillah. Why was it chosen as the Haftorah for Rosh Hashanah? There's some things that are obvious in the sense that this it says to, one second, let me just put this on, 1 second, on view mode. I think it's really important to try to think about, as I titled the shiur, what can Chana teach us about approaching God? And Rabbi Wilkinson mentioned Daf Yomi, as I think those of you who have been to my shiurim know that I aspire to learn Daf every day, and I try to do it every day. Baruch Hashem, I've been successful for a number of years. And this is actually from the Gemara. We'll see in a minute. We're going to quote the Gemara, but we're also going to quote the Midrash and see what we can think about together as a group for our personal and communal tefillah. So if those of you who want, you can open up, if you have a Hebrew English Tanakh, I brought you the chapter here. We can read it together. But what I'm going to do is actually read through the chapter and try to understand how this chapter can affect our tefillah. So we're going to start from the beginning. The first verse tells us that there's a man from Ramatayim Tzofim, which is a place up north from Har Ephraim, and his name is Elkanah, ben Yerocham, ben Elihu, ben Tohu, ben Tzuf Ephrati. He is an Ephrati from Ephraim. We have his lineage. And what's interesting about Elkanah, that he has two wives, right? He has two wives. One is named Chana, the other is Pnina. And already, right in the second verse, we're told that Pnina has children, but Chana does not have children. And this is going to set up our scene of first of all, the family dynamics and what's going on in Chana's personal life. So Pasuk Gimel tells us that what's unique about Elkanah, not the fact that he had two wives, but he used to go up from his town every single year to worship and to sacrifice in Shiloh. Shiloh, as you know, is the city where the tabernacle, the Mishkan, rested, was active, and he goes every year to Shiloh. This is what's called Aliyah L'Regel, right? We're supposed to actually 3 times a year actually go to Yerushalayim. This is the precursor. There is no temple in Jerusalem just yet. And we have the Mishkan in Shiloh, and every year Elkanah goes to Shiloh. And by the way, you should know that who lives in Shiloh or who works in Shiloh, Eli is the priest, is the Kohen, and he has 2 sons, Chofni and Pinchas, and they work in the Mishkan. It's important, first of all, to understand, I think many of us are familiar with the concept of a pilgrimage 3 times a year to Jerusalem. In this time period, people are not going to Shiloh, meaning Elkanah is unique in the sense that he does go, but it seems that many people are not going. So a Midrash says that actually Elkanah, every time that he went, he'd go a different way to kind of inspire the people to go. So we already see that Elkanah is someone who is committed to Judaism, committed to the temple, which is the Mishkan at this point, and he's trying to inspire the people around him. Okay, Pasuk Dalet tells us, one day Elkanah brought a sacrifice, and when he used to go, and he would give a portion to Pnina and to all her sons and daughters, but to Chana he would give one portion, though Chana was his favorite, right? For the Lord had closed her womb, right? So it says that he would give maybe a special portion to Chana. And we see, I think, reminiscent of the Yaakov with Leah and Rachel, right? Leah has children, Rachel does not. But there seems to be a special relationship between Yaakov and Rachel. So too here, there seems to be a special relationship between Elkanah and Chana, right? It says, Ki et Chana ahev, right? He loves Chana maybe more than Pnina. And the pasuk says, right, God has closed her womb. So Elkanah definitely sees a divine hand in her barrenness. And it seems, right, that to make matters worse, right, verse 6, moreover, her rival, to make her miserable, would taunt her that the Lord had closed her womb, right? So it's not, it's bad enough that Chana does not have children, but it seems that that Pnina doesn't make her life any easier. Let's put it that way. Says the Navi, this happened year after year, Shana b'Shana, right? And I think we feel the pain, right? Every year, the same thing is happening. Every time she would go up to the Mishkan, the other would taunt her, and so she wept and she wouldn't eat. And those of you who are, I guess I would say, maybe sensitive to emotions, right? We really feel for Chana, and we see that, right? She cries, and she doesn't eat. And one could suggest maybe a depression, right? She's crying, she's not eating, and there's really a torture that we see going on. And now, right, I'm gonna say poor Elkanah, because Elkanah now tries to make things better. And he says, right, Elkanah says to her, Chana, right, why are you crying? Why don't you eat? Right, lama lo tochli, why aren't you eating? Why are you so sad? Right, and again, maybe one could put in parentheses things not to say to barren women, right? But what does Elkanah say? Halo anochi tovlach mi asara banim. I love you so much. Aren't I better than 10 sons? Parentheses, no. Right? Right. Elkanah's trying to make her feel better, and says, you know, I love you so much. Isn't that enough? We see an instantaneous reaction. Verse number 9, Vatakam Chana, right after, so I don't like the translation here, but in Hebrew, right, Vatakam Chana, Chana gets up, right, after she eats and she drinks, right, meaning all of a sudden there's a change, right, till now, every year she didn't eat, all of a sudden, Chana eats, she gets up, and Eli is sitting at his seat, which is near the entrance of the Mishkan, and Chana is mad, right? Pasuk Yud says, "V'hi marat nefesh." Sorry, I don't like this. I don't like wretchedness. She is bitter, right? Her soul is bitter. And she prays to the Lord, "V'titpalel el Hashem ubacho tivke," and she cries, right? So we have this bitterness. She prays to God, and she's crying. And she now says, right, she vows. She makes a vow, and she says, right, Hashem tzvakot, right, the God of hosts, right, if you will look upon the suffering of your maidservant, right, look at me, right, imra'o tir'eh, right, she says, look at me, and she says, right, I am suffering, right, I am your maidservant, and I want you to remember me, right, uzchartani, I want you to remember me, and don't forget me, right, don't forget your maidservant, right, and she says, if you will grant your maidservant, meaning me, a male child, I will dedicate him to the Lord for all the days of his life. Right? So she makes a deal with God, and she says, if you give me a child, I will give him back to you, in essence, right? For his entire life, right? He will never shave his head. Right, this idea of nizirut, he's not going to, right, I will never shave his head, or he will never shave his head. Verse 12, and she's continuing to pray before God, and Eli sees that she is moving her mouth, right? She's moving her mouth. Verse 13, and Chana is, it says, medaberet al liba. Right? She is speaking on her heart, with her heart, right? Her lips are moving, but nothing is coming out. And Eli thinks that she's drunk, right? He thinks she's inebriated. She's not in her right mind. And he says to her, right, what are you doing here? You're drunk, get out of here. And she says, no. Right, she says, my Lord, to him, right? She shows kavod, she shows honor to him. And she says, no, you got it all wrong, right? I am an unhappy woman, bat blial, it's a little stronger than that, right? I have not had anything to drink. Rather, I've been pouring out my heart to God, right? And she says, right, don't think, right, again, don't think that I am this, again, bat blial, that I am this worthless woman. I've been speaking all this time out of my anguish, right? And then Eli says to her, Lechi l'shalom, right? He realizes that he made a mistake, and he says, right, go in peace, says Eli, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him, right? And basically, may your prayers be answered. And the last verse, right, she says, right, you are most kind to your handmaid, to the servant. And so she leaves. Again, we see that she eats, and she is no longer downcast, right? Panea lo hayu la'od. She is no longer saddened. The end of this chapter is basically that she goes home and she gets pregnant, and she then, after nursing her son, she actually then rededicates her son back to the temple, back to God. But I want to really discuss this chapter with you and try to understand a little bit more in what is in this chapter. So the first thing that I want to discuss is the halachic ramifications of this chapter, meaning we actually learn the laws of tefillah from Chana, right? The Gemara in Masachet Brachot goes through each verse that we just read and teaches us how we are meant to pray, right? So if we look at verse 13, Yud Gimel, right? It says that she is midaberet al liba, right? So the Gemara tells us that when we pray, we need to have kavanah, right? We need to have intent. We need to have focus, and that focus comes from our heart, right? We have to think about what does our heart want to say to God, right? So she's midaberet al liba. What else does she do? Right, her lips are moving, but she's not saying anything, meaning there is no sound coming out of her mouth. And this is actually the way we daven Shmona Esrei, right? The Amidah is meant, I remember very vividly learning this. I used to sight read the words, right? I used to think, I'm just reading the words. That's what tefillah is all about. But when you learn the laws, it's not about sight reading. It's about actually mouthing the words, right? We're saying the words, but we don't want to say it out loud because, again, as it's called, the silent Amidah, right? It is a silent prayer. It's between me and God. And again, I don't want to disturb anyone. There's actually a halachic discussion. What if I'm in a room by myself? Can I say it out loud? Right. And one opinion is that if you're not disturbing anyone and it helps with concentration, you can. But again, the best way to do it is silently. But again, it's very important to actually say the words. The next idea is, right, Eli is upset at her because he thinks that she is drunk, right? What do we learn from here? That you're not allowed to daven when you're drunk. This is an important rule that when one davens, one should be of clear mind and heart and not inebriated in any way. Why does Eli feel he needs to tell her to get out if she is drunk? Right, we actually have a commandment of rebuking someone, right? If we see someone doing something wrong, so then we should say something, right? Maybe she didn't know, and therefore Eli, right? We see here, Eli takes it upon himself to, tell her this is not the proper way to pray. And the other side of that coin is, if she knows that she's doing the right thing, she needs to tell him. Again, with kavod, right? She has reverence for Eli. She doesn't, spit in his face. She says, again, very respectfully, don't think that I am drunk. Rather, I am impassioned, right? And that's what you're seeing here. And when we are mistaken in things that we have said or done, it's important to acknowledge that, right? And Eli does acknowledge that he was in the wrong, and he gives her a bracha, right? Instead of saying, okay, fine, keep going, right? He says, no, lechi l'shalom, right? And may God actually grant you everything that you have desired. So I think that on the pshat level, on the simple reading of the story, we can learn many practical applications for our tefillah. But now I want to go a little bit deeper. I brought for you here the Gemara in Masechet Brachot. Again, Masechet Brachot deals with prayer, with brachot, as it mentions, right, blessings and prayer. And the bracha tells us we have to look a little bit deeper. So the first part is what I didn't go over. I mean, we read it together, but the first part of the prayer that Chana says to God, right? She actually takes a vow. And it's important to understand that vows are taken very seriously in Jewish law, definitely in Tanakh, definitely in the Mishnah and the Gemara, and in Jewish law in general. That's why it's very hard for me when kids sometimes say, I swear to God. No, don't do that. Don't swear to God, right? We take vows very seriously, and Chana actually takes a very strong vow, right? She takes a vow to Hashem Tzvakot. This is a very interesting name of God, and the Gemara actually tells us that this is the first time in the Tanakh that someone uses that phrase, right? Chana is the one who calls God the Lord of hosts. She's the first one who's ever done that. And the question is, why? Right, so Rabbi Elazar says from the day that the world was created, no one ever used that term till Chana came and called him Tzvakot. So what did she say? She says, right, one second, Amra Chana, right, what does she say before God? Ribono shel olam, right, master of the universe. Mikol tzva'ei tzvakot shebarata ba'olamecha, right? God, you created all of the tzva'ot, right? Meaning the tzava, right? We say vayachulu hashamayim va'aretz v'chol tzva'am, right? God creates the entire world, right? So what does Chana say? You created the entire world. Was it really so hard for you to give me a child? This reminds me of if anybody has seen Fiddler on the Roof, right? So Tevye says to God in the song, If I Were a Rich Man, right? He says, like, God, is it really so hard? Like, can you just give me a little bit more money? Like, why is it so, it's not so hard. Like, just give me a little bit more, right? So it's basically what she's saying. I wonder if they read this Gemara when they wrote that song, right? But she says, like, it's not hard for you to give me a child. Can you just give me a child? And now we have a mashal, right? A parable. What's the mashal? So the Gemara tells us that this is similar to a king, right? A king of flesh and blood who makes a feast for his servants. And a poor person comes and he stands at the door. And he says to them, can you give me a piece of bread, right? He's not invited to the feast. He's standing at the door and he says, please, can you just give me a piece of bread? And they ignore him. And he decides, I can't handle this anymore. And he pushes and he goes before the king and he says to the king, my lord, right, the king, from this entire feast that you have prepared, is it so difficult for you to give me a single slice of bread? Right? So we see the parallel, but I'd like to go a little bit deeper. So I think it's clear to all of us that the king is God, right? The king, the God, made a feast. Maybe if you want to, we can have some audience participation. What do you think the feast is? What's the nimshal? What's the nimshal in our story? What's the feast for Chana?
Oh, that's good.
Oh, maybe not. Yeah, sorry. Is that not going to work? Hold on.
Me, it's working.
Or-
Now. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Does someone want to, what do you think the feast is? Does someone want to? Okay, or you can put in the chat if it didn't work. Maybe I'll open up a chat box if somebody wants to write it in. So I want you to think about what is the feast. So I think that the feast is the fact that everybody else has children, right? Chana looks around. Maybe if we want to get specific, we can say Pnina has children, right? Her co-wife has children, but a feast seems to be, right, much grander. So I think Chana is looking around and she sees, right, everybody in the park has children. Everybody in my shul has children. And I don't, says Chana, right? Who are the servants, right? Again, the servants are all these people who have children. Maybe again, if we want to make it more specific, we can say Elkanah, right? Her husband has children. Pnina, she has children. And she's saying, like, I just want one child, right? The poor person is obviously Chana. What does it mean that she is standing at the opening? I think it's a very powerful image of Chana at the beginning of the chapter, right? At the beginning of the chapter, Chana, if you dramatize the story even more, you see her kind of, schlepping to Shiloh every year. She knows what's coming, right? Elkanah's giving out, barbecue, hamburgers to all the kids, and Chana's sitting by herself, right? And she's standing at the opening, right? Maybe she's not sitting at the table, right? We said she doesn't eat, right? She's watching the scene from the outside, right? She feels like she's an outsider, right? She feels that she cannot partake in this chag, right? In this celebration, right? And all she does is want to be a part of this. And she, we see that, right? The poor man requests from the servants to give him bread, right? So here, this could be the conversation between Chana and Elkanah, right? Meaning the servants are saying, like, listen, you weren't invited to this feast. We can't give it to you. Elkanah is saying, I should be enough, or what can I do, right? I'm trying my hardest, right? Elkanah, I think, has good intentions, though, we can discuss in a few minutes. But, right, again, what's the piece of bread? It's a child, right? Chana wants this child. The poor person wants a piece of bread. The servants ignoring the poor person, right? They don't give him anything to eat. Elkanah cannot give Chana the child. And here, as I mentioned in the beginning, right, there seems to be this pivotal moment, right? Every year, Chana is standing at the opening, right? What happens to make, again, if we go to the mashal, the poor person push in, right? He can't take it anymore. There's something that either inspires, angers, frustrates, right? There's something that is a catalyst for Chana's prayer. And I think that that's Elkanah, right? When Elkanah says, again, one can interpret it in many different ways. One could say, like, I'm trying, but I don't have any control. Maybe Elkanah is saying, listen, we tried and we tried. I'm done. Like, let's suck it up. And this is it. This is the reality, right? And I think that feeling, that idea gets Chana so upset, right? What do you mean you're giving up? right? And that's what makes Chana, right, push in, right? Again, that image of the poor person pushing in to go before God is, I think, a beautiful image of Chana, right, pushing into the Mishkan, right? She eats, she gets some strength, and goes into the Mishkan and calls to God, right? Almost in a, I don't want to use the word threatening, but in a very determined way, right? She calls God by the name of Tzvakot, and she demands that piece of bread, right? And she says, right, give me that child. And Baruch Hashem, right, she is answered. And I want to kind of think about what, why is this, first of all, why is this such a powerful image? Number two, why is this part of our Rosh Hashanah liturgy? And I think that really this idea of pushing in, right, of being either, again, so inspired, we can look at it in one way, or so frustrated by a situation that we are forced, in a sense, to pray to God in a very raw, unadulterated, I think, very straight manner. And mamash, as Chana says, right, from her heart or on her heart. This is something that's been sitting on her heart for so many years, and she just needs to get it out. And I think that this is meant to inspire us on Rosh Hashanah. Again, we're reading this right before we hear the shofar, right before we start Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. This is, I think, meant to inspire our tefillah, right? Where we need to, I think, dig deep and think about, have I been standing at that doorway, right? Why am I standing at that doorway, right? Have I become complacent, right? If we're going to see Elkanah as being complacent about a reality, right? Is that who we are, right? Have we accepted things the way they are, right? The status quo, have we given up? And this, I think, is meant, right, again, as the title, I think, says it all, right? Chana is really inspiring each and every one of us to really push in, right? To be there and show up and really think about, what do I want to say to God? I think, we talk about in Elul the idea that there's a song, right? Hamelech basadeh, right? That God is in the field, right? That you don't have to push into the palace. You don't have to go to the Mishkan. Rather, God is here and listening to us. And I think really that is the message of this chapter, that we're meant to really think about what really truly is something that I want, right? What is my heart telling me that I want to, kind of reveal to God in a very candid, honest tefillah. And I think this idea of pouring out our hearts, we just started saying slichot. I think the idea of slichot as well is this very raw, right? Why do we say it in the middle of the night or early in the morning? It's this time where, maybe all of our walls that we put up during the day come down, where we're more vulnerable, where we can be more honest with what is something that we really want to tell God. And I think that this is a very powerful message as we enter, again, as I mentioned, Slichot, as we enter Rosh Hashanah, that I really hope that our tefillot can be inspired by Chana, that we should take this inspiration. And again, I will also say, be sensitive to the people around us as well. I think that there's a lot about being introspective but I don't want to forget the Ben Adam L'Chavero side of it as well, right? Sensitivity to people who are going through difficult times, trying to find the right words to comfort a person. And I think that this chapter has so many levels and layers that we can think about to inspire us for this time period. So I want to actually open it up if you have any questions or comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Yes.
I've got a thought. I've got
Yes.
a thought about Ellie's actions.
Okay.
All right. There's a Yiddish phrase that says, the hat burns on the thief. So effectively,
Okay.
he feels he's done wrong, right. Here we have Ellie, where so many of the people who went into the temple actually drunk with strong liquor. They were travelers. They weren't brewing liquor or whatever it might be. They might have some wine for a Suda, but that was quite fresh. Here we have somebody who's presuming that she is drunk, not that she might be disabled and can't get out the word, or lost her voice and couldn't speak. He's jumping to conclusions without even speaking to her. That's my thoughts, and I wondered what you thought about that.
Correct. I would even take it a step further. As the chapter begins and kind of hints, Eli has two children. He has two sons. If you remember, Eli's sons are not very law-abiding. So it is interesting that Eli jumps to conclusions. And I agree that it is definitely not with sensitivity. And I think that is a lesson for all of us. I agree with you. This is not an ideal situation. I think this is a lesson that we also, I think that the Navi is giving us food for thought, right? You should not jump to conclusions, meaning you, the priest, who's sitting at the doorway, right, watching these people, right? I would imagine that, as I mentioned, not everybody's coming, so it's not like millions of people are coming. He probably knew who Elkanah was and what's going on in the family. Why doesn't he ever ask them how they're doing, right? We don't see any conversation between the priest and these people who have come on a pilgrimage. So I agree with you 100%. There is how would I say, criticism of Eli as well. So this is, I agree with you, Eli is not acting in a proper way. And again, Eli has his own issues and unfortunately does suffer consequences. So correct, meaning, yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to say that he's a foil to Chana, but if you look at all the characters, Chana seems to be the only one who's really, kind of standing up for her rights, I would say. But I agree with you. Definitely a criticism.
I mean, my thought is, in this day and age, that we are now bending backwards over somebody who can't understand something, somebody who can't say something in Hebrew properly. And here's Ellie making that assumption. You're drunk, out. And it's too harsh.
Yes. Look, I like how you said in the beginning, nowadays, I think we are extremely sensitive. I think that is definitely a modern concept. Again, I think it's a beautiful idea, but I think there is harshness in the Navi. Another thing, and you mentioned this in the beginning, is maybe it's also a sign of the times, meaning the people coming in were drunk. So it could be a criticism of the society at the time as well. So I think that's also food for thought. Excellent. Yes. Any other thoughts, comments?
The thing that again occurs to me is really because during the day today, I had the privilege of driving around London almost in its entirety, and I was listening to a shir, and one of the shiurim I was listening to was a comment that we're too willing these days to look at segulot. We're trying to find a fast way to get to our reply, to get to our answer, to get to the end. We want everything now. And you can sit back and say that Nina didn't do something right, Chana didn't do something right, Ellie didn't do something right, but maybe they were actually sending us a slightly different message and saying, you know what, if you want to get the results, you've actually got to go directly up there, and pushing her. And you can happily criticize them for saying maybe they should have done for her. Yes, maybe they should have been more understanding. Maybe there should have been more empathy, but maybe they were actually doing her the biggest favor in the world by actually saying, you know, we're closing the doors to you in a way, because there's only one door where you're going to get your answer from. And the more we make you comfortable with the situation you're in, the less you're actually going to knock on the door that matters. And maybe that is a message for all of us, that we've got to know that, yes, everyone is very nice and very good, that everyone's got to be here to help you. But at times we sometimes have to go right to the top. If we, and as you say, that she was standing at the door and she had to ask for it and she was pushed, but maybe she needed that extra spur of Penina not being so nice to her, maybe, and all these other things, to try and say, you've got to go there yourself, and you've actually got to step yourself, and until you do that, you're not going to get there.
I think you raise a very important point. I think that I'll start from the idea that 100%. I think that the main message was right. Tefillah is the answer, right? Meaning, you know, we have it with Yitzchak and Rivka, right? He says, why are you talking to me? Talk to God, right? This idea of Tefillah being the answer, I think, is very important. I would like to posit that I think this story should inspire us to not need those negative parts of the story, right? Meaning, I think that the story is saying, let's turn to God, right? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Slichot. We don't have to wait for things to be bad, right? We don't have to wait for Pnina to torture us, and we don't have to wait for, Elkanah to maybe say something that, grates on our nerves. You're right, 100%. Meaning, I think that Elkanah's words do prompt her to daven, but I would like to say that I think this story is here for us to read so that we learn the message without having to go through that suffering. That's the way I would like to see it.
I think that's certainly I'd agree with that. But I was also, again, what you're speaking, just thinking, the people who, let's say, traditionally will go to a Rebbe, etc., on Rosh Hashanah or before Rosh Hashanah. Maybe again, this is the message: you don't need to necessarily do that. You need to do the direct talk. Again, controversial, isn't it? Slightly different controversy to Ian's ones, but still.
Yes. Look, again, we read this on Rosh Hashanah, so I think that there's great weight to this story, and I definitely think we read it because I think that Chazal, right, wanted us to get that message, that this is the way to get our wishes, our needs answered, is through Tefillah. And I think it's very powerful to read the story on Rosh Hashanah, when right before Shofar, right before Musaf, where this is what it's all about. I agree 100%. Yes.
Very poignant and very important time, and clearly a massive message. Yes. Again, I want to thank you so much for sparing time to be with us. It's always lovely to hear you. It's always lovely to learn from you, and a very important message. And maybe I'm going to have to readdress my day one drosha before Tekir Shofar. I think Howard's probably delighted I can cut a few things out now, but and just refer to the recording of the shir. So, but again, wish you a very happy and healthy year for you and your family. Hatzlacha, that everyone should be well and that everything should go well for you in the year to come and for the Kehillah and for Klal Yisrael. We wish you all very well and thank you so much again.
Amen. Thank you so much. And again, it's really such an honor to be able to be here and learn together as we have previously. It's really thank you so much for inviting me. Yes.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shana Tova to all of you.
Shana Tova.
Wishing you a wonderful year. Shana Tova.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.